Welcome to part 5, getting licensed. Okay, we live in a society that needs licensing, and again, if you've already done your due diligence, you found an area that is okay to have nightly rentals, right? Whether that area, that house is actually zoned nightly rental, or if you know that maybe the city allows nightly rentals, you just have to get a permit, so it doesn't matter where you are. Okay. Getting licensed is very important. It's a business. You're buying this house thinking about it as a business, okay? And so you need to treat it like a business, okay? So one of the things you have to do is get a permit, most likely. Things that, cities are looking for is, sometimes I've had some where, they required a sprinkler system in the home if you wanted to go over 15 people, okay? Like an actual commercial grade sprinkler system. Kind of crazy, but that's what they wanted. If you don't have that, you can't go over their allotted amount. Okay. Other places say, hey, if you do this kind of permit, then we'll approve it pretty easily, 15 or less. If you want to go higher than 15, go up to 30. Well, then hey, you have to get this permit, and that requires a little bit more and stuff like that. So. Again, do your due diligence ahead of time. The best place to talk to is the city. The city's going to have the information you need, or county if you're going in a more rural area. But contact the city or county to be able to find out what is the permitting process, and that way you're able to get that process started, maybe even before your home is finished, or if you're buying an existing home, as you start the process to buy that home, also be talking to the city so that again, what is required to get that permit. You might have to do a water test on it, check the water if you're on a well or different things like that. Let me tell you a quick story about permitting. So I told you in part 1 that I've been in a couple lawsuits from doing these nightly rentals. So with my second home, I built it in an area near Yellowstone, and the county required a permit. I worked on getting a permit. So because it was a larger home, I had to pay to send out letters to everybody that would be, kind of in the general area, and say, hey, I'm doing a nightly rental, come to this hearing. And I didn't really think much of it. I thought, well, sure, okay, just, go to a hearing and stuff like that. I get to the hearing, and it turns out that, all these neighbors had gotten this letter, and, these are older people that are, semi-retired and have not a lot to do, and they wanted to fight me. Hey, this guy shouldn't be renting this home. This is the neighborhood, even though they were all second homes. None of them actually lived there, but they wanted to fight me on it. And so it was a hearing that the county was really good, and they kept the peace, and they got mad at these guys at a certain couple points because they were being a little mean, we could say, and so it was quite an experience. I'd never been the bad guy, right? I was at this hearing all these things, and these people were mad at me for wanting to have the audacity to have a vacation rental in their neighborhood. One of our most ironic things was that one of the guys there was renting out his house himself, but only to 15 people as opposed to my 30 people, and so he was mad too, that I was doing it, because he was good because he was only doing 15. I was doing 30. That was way worse, even though since then I swear there's a lot more than 15 people in his house, but that's another story. It's just interesting how here's what I would say is, again, going back to licensing, you want to make sure you can get licensed, make sure you know what you're getting into, and also know that the downside of second homes is the people can be rude sometimes, because a lot of times these are second homes maybe for these other people. So these are people that have money, and maybe just don't like you. They don't want to have that area. They've had that area for a long time. It's been peaceful and good, and they're worried about you coming in and destroying the tranquility of their area. And so they're going to fight you on it. And ultimately I was able to win and go through it and stuff like that, but it wasn't fun. I don't like being the bad guy. I feel like I'm a nice guy, but it was kind of hard to go through that process. And again, the county was very good. It was mainly just a hearing just for that people to vent, but ultimately they were going to approve it anyhow. In my situation, maybe this is giving too much information. You don't need to know all this, but hey, for your information, The county did find one thing in the thing. One of the guys that brought it up was I had a easement through his land, and he was at the hearing. He's the one that rents out his house too, and he said, hey, that easement, that has my driveway on there, that doesn't allow for commercial use, right? You can't use that. That's only for personal residential use, and I disagreed, but ultimately the county said, hey, we'll approve your permit, but you guys got to figure this out. So basically, I had to get into a lawsuit with him to be able to allow myself to rent out this home. If I didn't, then they wouldn't give me the permit, and then I couldn't technically rent it out. So I had to go to law, get this done. He fought me on it, and ultimately the judge quickly agreed with me. But I say quickly, when the court actually happened, he quickly agreed. But it took a very long time to even get to there, and several thousands of dollars to be able to get there. So even when you're, in a lawsuit and you're going to win, it still costs you a lot of money, and ultimately not a fun experience, because you always wonder, like, I think I'm right, but am I right? Right? Is this really going to work out in my favor? My attorney seems to think so, but I'd already been in another lawsuit, and that attorney said, hey, yeah, you're good, and then we weren't, right? So, you never know if that attorney's really helping you or if he's just telling you what you want to hear because he's making some money, right? So, things to think about. Again, just going in eyes wide open. The downside of second homes or second home areas is that in a primary residence area where you're going to church, you're going to neighborhood gatherings, these people next to you, right? So you're friends, and so oftentimes you can work things out because you're friends, right? You don't want to go to church and see the guy and be like, dude, I'm in a lawsuit with you. But on a second home, you don't see these guys very often. And so again, neighbors are not necessarily as friendly as they would be if you lived there, okay? And so oftentimes they can get angry with you like they did that thing with getting my license, or in the lawsuits that we had to be in and stuff like that, which is funny to me, and especially ironic when people are doing similar things to you, but they're mad at you. It just doesn't always make sense. But hey, that's the world we live in, and I bring all of these things up so that you're aware, right? So that you know that, like, hey, some things can happen. And so I'm not trying to scare you from doing a nightly rental. I think nightly rentals are a great idea. But hey, I've had to do a little bit of legwork and had to be in some crazy situations, lawsuits and things like that, because again, people wanted to fight me on doing these. I think the world is awakening to the idea of nightly rentals, and they're getting more and more common. But again, go in with eyes wide open. Find out where you can buy, where you can build, and again, make sure you get that licensing started and figure out what's required. And again, just go in with eyes wide open. So that concludes part 5, licensing.